It's very smoky. Actually, you should do a barbecue outside. Hi, I'm Dr. Leslie and welcome back to my kitchen. Today, we're gonna grill up some pork loin steak. So this is a pork loin steak. This is not very popular in the Chinese kitchen. Why? Because this piece of meat tends to get really dry if you do not know how to cook it well. I managed to get my hands on some Japanese kurubuta pork loin. The Japanese love this kind of pork, especially for tonkatsu, because they love the piece of fat around there that goes to the end here. So when you eat tonkatsu, right, there's always one end that tastes really good. This is the end lah, because it's full of the fat. The main thing of the tonkatsu is this piece of meat. This piece of meat is like white meat in like chicken breast compared to the rest of the meat, which is more like a red meat like chicken thigh. So if you're thinking of doing a barbecue, this is a cut of pork that you might want to consider. So the key to this dish is to get your hands on some really good quality pork. This Japanese kurubuta pork is really good. First of all, it's got a bit more marbling in the meat. It's going to ensure that your pork is going to come out nice and juicy. And of course, that piece of fat. The Japanese have a way of raising the pig so to get rid of that porky smell. And then the second thing is, I would like to soak my pork in a brine made from milk and salt. It's very simple. 1 cup milk, 250 ml, 2 teaspoons salt. So that's about almost a 5% brine. Just brine it for 4 hours like this. Just submerge it under the milk and salt solution for about 4 hours or overnight, and your pork will turn out to be really nice and tender and juicy. But not the kind of tender that the Chinese chefs do it, no? They marinate in bicarbonate. It really just alters the texture of the pork until it's almost unrecognizable. But with the milk treatment, the pork just turns into nice and tender. It still tastes as if you didn't do anything to it. You know, tastes very natural. Okay, so after you marinate, right, we want to wash away the marinade. Just wash away the excess salt. The meat itself is not going to be salty, but the salt is going to be on the surface if you don't get rid of it. Okay, next thing we're gonna just pat dry. Okay, just before we grill, one more thing we need to do. Around each muscle, right, is a thin membrane called the fascia. We need to cut through the fascia because when you fry the meat, the muscle will contract but the fascia will not. So then the meat will curl up. Even when you're doing tonkatsu, it's very important for you to make a few cuts around the edges here. This is where the fascia is. So you want to give a few cuts so you break that fascia so that the meat doesn't curl up. And once you've done that, we're just gonna oil the pork. Just imagine we are doing a barbecue. I'm just gonna oil it because when I put it on the barbecue, you make sure that it doesn't stick. Actually, this is a very simple recipe because when you have a good piece of meat, you want to be able to taste the meat. All I'm gonna do is to grill the pork and then just put a very simple miso glaze on it. I'll show you how to do the miso glaze. So what you need is some miso. I'm gonna add some soy sauce and some mirin and sugar, and this will give us a very nice glaze. The soy sauce is going to give you a bit of color, the miso, the umami, the sugar, a bit of sweetness, and also the mirin for the gloss and also some sweetness. There are many different kinds of miso in the market. Some are more salty than others, so always trust your taste rather than the recipe. I'm using white miso, and white miso tends to be less salty than the normal miso, so you might have to add a bit more soy sauce. It should be salty, umami, sweet, and we're gonna use this later to baste the pork once it's done. So we're gonna start cooking. This is a griddle pan that you can easily get. Why I use this is because I want those nice grill marks on my pork. Makes it look a little bit nicer. Before you grill the pork, right, we always grill the vegetables first because you want the vegetables to be already ready when you cook the pork because you want to serve it fresh, right? You don't want the pork to just stay there for too long, it might get dry. So you want to quickly oil your griddle pan. I'm just going to grill some of this broccolini. Just need to char the outside a little bit, get those lines on the vegetables and you're done. This sweet potato that has already been steamed, so it's nice and soft, so all we need to do is to cut it open. They tell me that the kurubuta pig in Kagoshima are actually fed sweet potatoes. So I thought, okay, well, I'm gonna serve some sweet potatoes together with the pork, with the Kagoshima pork. When the broccolini is grilling, you can actually smell it. And what we're going to do is to get a bit of char. It's very smoky. Actually, you should do a barbecue outside. Got no choice because we got to film inside the kitchen. So now it's time to grill the pork. So put the stick down. I usually like to put a timer when I cook steak. So this one will be about maybe a minute on each side, about 3 minutes. 1, 2, 3, and it should be done. Okay. When it comes to cooking pork, you really don't want to overcook it. Nowadays, you can eat pork that is slightly pink, but it's not going to be very easy because these are really thin. So this one will cook well done. But if you can get a whole of a really thick pork steak, about maybe a 1.5 centimeter, you can really cook it so that it's really nice and pink in the middle. But I think the Japanese cut it this size because most people will use this for making tonkatsu. Before the turning, I'm going to glaze it. Okay, that's it. I'm going to put a bit of glaze on this side as well. Okay, so now the moment of truth. A squeeze of lime will cut through all that grease. Pork loin steak, it's really good. Get hold of some kurubuta pork loin steak. Basically grill it simply. But the secret is in that milk brine. It makes it nice and juicy and tender. And you get to taste the natural flavor of that pork, you know, which is just nice and savory, sweet. The piece of fat, right, at the end gives you so much flavor. So next time you're planning to use pork, maybe you can consider using pork loin steak. If you're interested in the Japanese Kagoshima pork loin steak, you can check out the link below. There's a special website where you can order your Japanese pork. Until next time, happy cooking.